What if everything you thought you knew about one of the most powerful names in music was a lie? What if behind the platinum records and red carpet appearances, there lived a darker truth hidden behind the bright lights of fame and luxury? This is HollyLeaks, and today, we're diving into the breaking developments in the explosive trial that has kept the nation on edge for weeks. The man at the center of this firestorm is none other than Diddy Combs, a music mogul once adored by millions, and now sitting in a courtroom facing allegations that could destroy everything he built over decades of success. This trial has unfolded like a high-stakes drama packed with more than 30 witnesses, raw testimony, and shocking footage that is stripped away. The celebrity glossed to reveal a much more sinister story, and now just moments ago, the jury has reached a partial verdict in what might be one of the most controversial legal battles the entertainment world has ever seen. Our correspondent John Sudworth, reporting from New York, described the scene as tense, electric, even as the courtroom sat on edge with the announcement that the jury has come to a decision, but only on part of the charges, leaving the rest hanging in limbo. What makes this case truly unprecedented is not just the fame of the defendant, but the grim details that have emerged throughout the 7-week trial. This is a man who was given the honorary key to New York City not long ago, a symbol of his towering influence and status. But what the jury had to wrestle with was the vast chasm between the man celebrated on stage and the disturbing persona that allegedly ruled his private life with control and violence. And the centerpiece of the prosecution's case is a disturbing video that surfaced, showing Diddy Combs assaulting his former partner Cassie Ventura in a hotel room, footage that went viral and became the emotional core of the trial. What followed was a chilling deep dive into what prosecutors described as multi-day sex parties drenched in drugs, baby oil, and coercion. They painted a picture of a powerful man using his fame and wealth to manipulate and exploit those around him, particularly women who found themselves trapped in a world they never signed up for. It was a world where assistants allegedly procured substances and helped set up these gatherings under the direction of the star at the center of it all, Cassie Ventura's role in this trial has been pivotal, not just because of the video evidence, but because her testimony reportedly laid bare the emotional and psychological toll of being in a relationship that went beyond toxic into dangerous territory. The prosecution argued that these freakoffs were not just wild parties, but carefully orchestrated setups designed to degrade, humiliate, and entrap victims under the guise of consent. While the defense has not denied the existence of these gatherings nor the disturbing behavior captured on video, they have insisted that the acts involved were between consenting adults. They argue that Mr. Combs may have had serious personal issues, but that does not make him guilty of sex trafficking or racketeering. Their stance has been clear: domestic violence, while reprehensible, is not synonymous with the federal charges brought against their client. And so the courtroom has become a battleground of perspectives, with every day bringing more questions than answers. How much of what was seen and heard could be considered criminal under the law, and how much was a deeply dysfunctional but legal private life? The answer to that may be coming soon, or at least partially so, because as John Sudworth explained, the jury has delivered a verdict on the SEC's trafficking charges, a major component of the case. But they remain undecided on the racketeering charges. Leaving the courtroom in a state of suspended judgment was not the definitive end many hoped for, but it was a seismic moment nonetheless. The fact that any part of this high-profile case has reached a decision suggests that the jury has been able to wade through the murky waters of fame, manipulation, power dynamics, and trauma to draw a legal conclusion. But until we hear what that verdict is, which may not happen tonight, the world is left to speculate. Diddy Combs and his legal team were in the courtroom during this revelation, their expressions reportedly grim and anxious, perhaps second-guessing decision to reject a plea deal offered before the trial began. A decision that was rooted in the belief that a jury would ultimately believe in his version of events, that his fame and charm would carry weight in the eyes of the law. And now, as the clock ticks toward the announcement of the partial verdict, that gamble hangs in the balance, because if the jury finds him guilty on even one count, it could mean years behind bars, not just a fall from grace, but a complete dismantling of everything he built, from music to fashion to business partnerships. It all hangs on the edge of this legal precipice, and no matter where the verdict lands, it is clear that the public image of Diddy Combs will never be the same again. Gone are the headlines of record sales and hit singles, replaced now with testimonies of abuse, footage of violence, and chilling tales of freakoffs soaked in fear and control. And while the full story is still unfolding, this much is certain: the age of blind idolatry of celebrity is over, and will be here every step of the way to break it all down for you. The jury was sent back into deliberation to reach a verdict on the racketeering charges. The tension in the courtroom was thick enough to slice through the very atmosphere that once praised Diddy Combs as an icon of cultural influence and musical innovation, now transformed into a cautionary tale unfolding in real time. Because this isn't just a trial about one man's actions, it's a trial about power, unchecked, about the culture of silence that often surrounds the rich and famous, and about whether the justice system is capable of holding even the most untouchable to account. The courtroom has become a stage where witnesses, some of them former employees, Others, former lovers, took turns painting, a haunting picture of a life that seemed to orbit around control, surveillance, manipulation, and fear. One former assistant described how everything from where Cassie Ventura could go to whom she could speak with was monitored tightly, and violations of those unspoken rules allegedly resulted in emotional outbursts. Or worse, others testified that they were instructed to facilitate events, procure drugs, and ensure that the freakoffs went uninterrupted, creating an environment where saying no became increasingly impossible. And for many observers, this trial has cracked open the dark underbelly of an industry long protected by money connections, and a public relations machine designed to sanitize even the most disturbing stories for years. Rumors swirled around Diddy Combs, but they were often dismissed as gossip or jealousy. Now those whispers have been given voice under oath, and the image that emerges is one that calls into question not just his innocence, but the complicity of an entire ecosystem that enabled him for decades, even as the defense continued to emphasize that all of the sexual encounters were consensual. In that domestic violence, while troubling was not equivalent to the federal charges of sex trafficking and racketeering, the prosecution leaned into the idea that consent under duress is no consent at all. They argued that Mr. Combs used his fame like a weapon, cloaking coercion and glamour and forcing victims into situations they would have never agreed to under normal circumstances. The jury was given access to text messages, videos, emails, and even testimony from therapists who treated some of the alleged victims, and as those layers unfolded, so too did the narrative of a man living two lives. One as the king of hip-hop, smiling on talk shows and donating to charity, and another as a shadow figure, orchestrating a world filled with intimidation, fear, and abuse. Many people watching this trial have struggled with the dichotomy. How could someone so loved by fans and celebrated by peers be capable of the horrors described in court? And that emotional conflict is something the jury must navigate as well, and that is perhaps why reaching a verdict on racketeering has proven to be more complicated than expected. The legal definition involves establishing that Diddy Combs ran an ongoing criminal enterprise, which requires more than just isolated incidents of bad behavior. It requires proof that he operated a network with structure, intention, and continuity, something the prosecution claims is evident in how freakoffs were organized, how assistants were used to facilitate them, and how victims were kept in line through both financial leverage and psychological control. But proving that beyond reasonable doubt is no easy task, and that's what the jury is grappling with behind closed doors. Meanwhile, the public reaction to the partial verdict news has been swift and polarizing, calling it a long overdue reckoning. While others argue that celebrities are being unfairly targeted in an era where fame can just as quickly become infamy, social media has lit up with debates, hashtagged with everything from justice for Cassie to cancel culture gone too far. Through all of it, Diddy Combs has remained silent, seated in court, his expression mostly unreadable, surrounded by a shrinking circle of allies and advisors who once believed his star power could shield him from scrutiny. There's no telling what the final outcome of this trial will be, but the damage to his legacy is already irreversible. Brand deals have been pulled, collaborations put on ice, and the very narrative that once painted him as a self-made mogul and street smart entrepreneur has been overshadowed by allegations of cruelty and domination in the name of pleasure and power. And if the racketeering verdict eventually comes back as guilty, it would mark a watershed moment not just for this trial, but for the broader entertainment industry. It would signal that the age of accountability is truly here, that even the highest towers can be brought down when enough voices refuse to remain silent. But if the jury fails to reach a consensus and a mistrial is declared on that charge, the debate will rage on about whether justice was truly served, and what that even means. In a case this complex, in a world increasingly skeptical of fame and increasingly aware of the systems that protect the powerful, the outcome of this case matters not just for the individuals involved, but for what it represents to everyone watching. This is not just about one verdict, it's about whether we believe survivors, whether we're willing to accept hard truths about the people we once idolized, and whether we are brave enough to demand change from industries that too often turn a blind eye. And even as we await that final piece of the puzzle, we cannot ignore what we've already seen. Heard in these past 7 weeks, we have witnessed the unraveling of an icon, the courage of accusers, and the struggle of a legal system trying to navigate the fog of fame, money, and trauma. And here at we will continue to bring you every twist, every verdict, every voice that refuses to be silenced, because this is bigger than music, bigger than courtrooms. This is about truth, and what happens when we finally stop looking away. Like and subscribe to HollyLeaks for more real stories that the world needs to hear.